Good morning, afternoon, evening, or good night, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bill Woodcock,
And I'm Steve Hunt. Hello, wherever you are, whenever you are.
and you are watching or listening to another edition of the Before We Go podcast, the podcast by Gen X, about Gen X, for everybody. Today, Steve, we continue our Halloween theme. As promised last episode, we are talking about the treats of Halloween. So, those of us who go out and do trick or treating, we're talking about that treat part. What'd you get? Why'd you get it? How much did you get? Steve, let's start with just the average Halloween. What would the average Halloween trick or treating ritual look like? Not maybe not just when you're a kid, but hell, let's bring it a little bit more current. And even with you having kids.
Mhm.
How long were you out? Where did you go? What'd you get?
Well, let me start with a. I know we're talking about candy, but I want to talk about candy receptacles and how they have evolved over the years. When I was a kid, most of us had the pillowcases. They did not have all these fancy schmancy, pumpkin buckets, and now I see pumpkin, themed Halloween themed bags. The game of candy receptacles has really been up. I don't know about you, Bill, but since I was a kid, they've gotten much better. The
You mean buckets? Buckets?
buckets, bags, I mean, stuff to put the candy in has gotten much better. When I was a kid, the most somebody had, and you thought you were hot shit, is that hard ass plastic pumpkin bucket, which, oh, by the way, weren't very fucking big. Pardon my French. Because a good haul, you probably had two of those suckers. Okay. And so you probably had to have the pillowcase anyway to empty the bucket halfway through to put more in the bucket. So just wanted to go there. Um, I would say the average haul. I know when my kids were younger, like they would fill the equivalent of half of a pillowcase. I mean, they loaded up strong. Um, Not so much now. When I was a kid, you know, not quite as much as that because I think the other game that's been upped, and I say this to today's parents who hand out Halloween candy, bravo, they hand out more stuff than the parents did when I was a kid. And I know we're going to get to that later, but I will just say the halls today are much better than the halls of yesteryear in terms of quantity. So, like I said, my kid could get half a pillowcase, a little bit more. I probably was in that quarter to 30%. How about you, Bill? What was your haul like in terms of product?
So I remember going trick or treating using like an average brown grocery bag.
Ah, those two. Yes, the grocery bag. That was another one.
And I think the grocery bags were doubled so that, it would be stronger and can hold more materials. Later on, as a parent myself, the plastic pumpkin-y buckets, and there's one Halloween that my son completely went bonkers on, that where a pillowcase was involved, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, I mean the typical haul. First off, again, like I said last episode, and I've said in previous episodes, my house was off the street, and there also weren't many kids
Mm,
in the neighborhood. So there wasn't really so many people to go trick or treating with.
hmm
So we drove around mostly just the people who we knew. And so probably in about I would say probably an average Halloween journey out for trick or treating when I was a kid would take about 90 minutes. And you would get a nice little melange of things. Oh, pardon me, I need to cough. Pardon me for that. But you would get like your Milky Way bars, your Three Musketeers bars, your Reese's cups, you would get some candies that you wouldn't normally see, like chunky bars, $100,000 bars, taffy. Like I can't remember those things. I think they called them Charleston Chews now, but there's like another name which came in like a long strip and it was the fruit flavored taffy that you would just bite off and chew.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like, little boxes of Cracker Jacks and my God, there would be some raisins involved and other things. And we'll get to that. I want to talk about like the quality of the products that we would get, but it's in a bad little haul. I mean, it would take probably a few weeks to
Yeah.
work down all that candy, at which time you had Thanksgiving. So it wasn't too bad. I mean, but that was my average. And then as a parent, now there are so many more options. Now you can go to the shopping malls. Now people, I live in a much more walkable neighborhood. So
Mhm.
people go all over the place. I mean, I haven't had kids do Halloween for at least 15 years. Yet I still get about 2 dozen kids to the door every day. I mean, every year, every day, every year. And that's cool. I love it. So, I mean, what was like your greatest Halloween? I mean, where have you seen where the treats have really just totally overachieved?
I'd have to say with my kids, in terms of just the quality and quantity of treats. Again, I I gotta say, and you know, I keep saying we're gonna get to it, and I promise you, folks, we will. Um, I would say, especially when my kids were younger, um, the parents of this neighborhood really upped the game. And you're right, Bill. There's a lot more in the way of options. I'm glad you made that point because I know in my neighborhood, um, I'm not too far from Main Street Laurel, and they do a whole thing. I don't know if you've ever been down there for Halloween. They shut down Main Street, and all the merchants sit out front of their stores and hand out candy. It's fun.
Okay. So we have to break for a second
Okay,
and remind ourselves that the audience is from literally all over the world. So they don't know Main Street Laurel.
sorry.
So, for those who are uninitiated, which is almost everybody listening to this, Laurel is a suburb. Well, it's between Baltimore and Washington. Can't really say it's a suburb of anything. If it
True.
is, I guess I would say DC. But it's one of these typical Main Streets USA. It's probably a couple mile long drag with sidewalks on the street and then storefronts. Continue, please.
Yes, and it's very historic. Like a lot of the buildings go back a long, long way because Laurel's an old town in Maryland, which obviously is one of the 13 colonies. Blah blah blah. But the merchants of the stores, they shut down the street, and so you can like walk down one way and back up the other way and get a pretty good haul then. You also have my kids' elementary school, which is walkable. You mentioned that. They have something called trunk or treat, where the school parents literally line up their cars in the parking lot and hand out candy to the kids out of the trunks of their cars. And some of the people, with what they do with their minivans and SUVs, they decorate the trunks of their car. It is cool as hell. So you're right. You can get a pretty good haul between all these events before Halloween itself. So those are the ones that I remember. And then Halloween night, yeah, I think my son had a pretty large bucket because he likes candy. Um, and I think we had to refill that bucket twice or empty it twice, excuse me, because the haul was so big. It was next level. I mean, there were folks giving out 3, 4, 5 pieces of candy a house, and it was good stuff. So that's probably the one I remember. That's also the one where we went by the house we talked about in the previous episode. For those of you who maybe already watched it, talking about decorations, the police officer who goes all out. He also went all out with handing out candy because I guess he figured I've scared the shit out of the kids. Let me hook them up with some really good stuff. The full size bars, baby. So that
How prevalent were the full size bars in
not
your Halloween experience? Like,
not
give me a percent. Was it 10%?
maybe
5%?
10 at most, probably closer to 5. But
Okay.
this was the one house, like I said, he went all out, including the product, and he was handing out full size of good stuff. So that's probably the Halloween I remember the most because my son and three of his friends all trick or treated together. They came back to our house to sort through the candy because that's what you do as a parent. They filled now our dining room table seats six. That table was covered between the four kids. They had so much candy. It was ridiculous. I think we were still eating candy past Christmas. So that's probably the one I remember just because there was so much candy, man. But it was awesome. The kids were like,
So,
look at all this.
so I mentioned my son one year. He was about 16 when he did this. He had not gone trick or treating for about 4 years.
Ah,
And then one night he decided, I'm going to go out trick or treating. And he announced this to us. And we're like, okay. So it was that night. It was Halloween night. I'm going to go trick or treating. All the way up until then, he was going to, stay home and help me pass out candy. So he went into his room, grabbed some orange spray on hair dye, which he would use for his cross country team events. And he came down with orange hair and a t shirt and jeans and a pillowcase. And he went out. 2 hours later, got a phone call. He needed a ride to come back. Why do you need a ride? I just need one. He gets a ride. He's come back. He cannot close this pillowcase. That's why. Because he held it. He hugged it like a baby. And it was so full. It was literally full to the top. I got his ass home and I weighed it. It was 13 pounds of candy.
holy crap.
He ate that candy until February. So it was 13 pounds of candy. And I still don't understand why he decided to go. I still don't understand what was involved in the decision. Nothing was ever said. It was just, I just wanted to go. And then, the next year I asked him, are you going to go trick or treating again? He looked at me like I was some kind of asshole. And I was just like, okay, I guess not. So, there's a lot made about these full size bars. I'm going to say this in the era of Costco, BJ's, Sam's Club, there's no reason to not go full size. If you're only going to have a couple dozen kids show up,
Mhm.
reach a damn full size bar. Retail that costs about $2. At the wholesale club, it costs a little more than a buck or so each. Splurge and give the kids full size. I mean, what are you going to do anyway? You buy three of those big bags of candy for $12 a piece, you've spent the same amount of money and you're not providing any value. So buy the damn full size bars. For some reason, people like handing out the assortments. Then it's the quality of the assortments that also matters. Steve, who the fuck wants a little box of Milk Duds? I don't think many people do. But yet, these companies, they put in their assortments like good shit. Like you get little Twizzlers, you get little Hershey bars, you get little Reese's cups. Oh, and then you also get Milk Duds. And so there's a crap candy that's in the middle of that.
Yes.
So that's why I say go full size. But that being said, I would say my experience is the same as yours. Probably about 5% of the people do go full size. But damn it, if you're going to go full size with some shit that you like. So you have stuff left over. My full size go to are either Snickers, Reese's peanut butter cups, or peppermint patties because they're all awesome. And I'll eat the extra. It's not a worry. So, don't go full size with candy that's shit. Don't go full size Milk Duds. Don't go full size hot tamales. Don't go, although some people really do like their hot tamales. Don't go full size, something that sucks.
Yeah.
Don't give out full bags of beef jerky. One, those are expensive. So, Steve, I think we got to go here. What is some of the real stuff that either as a kid or as a parent, you've looked in your bag or the kids' bags and you go, what the hell did this? Because I don't even want to know this person anymore. What are some of these worst things that you've ever got at Halloween?
You know, the worst things typically come from people who either don't care enough to put out the effort to go to the store to even get, I forget the full size or the party size. They don't even feel like going out to get the minis. Or maybe there's the, oh crap, I just thought about it today, so let me just whip together something. Let me start. Little bags of popcorn. You know, good. You get a little baggie of popcorn. You know good and damn well that person either wasn't thinking about it or didn't care about it and decided, oh, I could just make a whole big old thing of popcorn, separate it out in baggies like I'm cutting weed.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This wasn't even like store popcorn. This wasn't like a little mini, like a lunch
Oh,
size
I'm
portion
talking.
of popcorn. This is some popcorn that people made themselves and put into baggies.
I'm talking Ziploc, baby. I'm talking
I
Ziploc.
mean, did somebody test that for drugs?
Like I said, I imagine somebody with a big bowl of popcorn separating it out carefully, like they're cutting up weed into the little Ziploc
That's
baggie for
terrible. It could have been sprayed
distribution.
with something, sprayed with some additive.
Yeah. So that's the one that gets me is if that's all you got, don't do it. Just say no. One year, I was out with my kids, and there was yeah, don't do it. Damn, I didn't even catch that. Shit. One year we went by. You know how you have the box of chocolates, like the Forrest Gump assorted chocolates.
Yeah, like the Whitman samplers,
I was
right?
I was trying to come up with the name. Thank you. There was somebody giving out those, not the whole box, but just opening up the box and
No,
giving out pieces.
no. Who the hell got the nut cluster?
Yeah,
Somebody had to get the nut cluster, Steve.
yeah,
Nobody likes the nut cluster in those.
yeah.
But yet
So
some child was given a nut cluster out of a Whitman sampler or a Russell Stover sampler. They got Russell Stover's nut cluster. I don't like the sound of that.
it's a
Got Russell Stover's nut cluster, and how have they been scarred for life?
it's a cluster, okay, but those are the two that those are the two that jump out. I have other ones, but Bill, I want you to jump in here and give me some of the ones where you've looked at the bag and you're like, why did these people even bother?
Okay, okay. So first off, I'm just going to observe on what you just said because that was effing amazing. I can't believe how unsavory and unclean handing out individual candies from a Whitman sampler could be. I mean, you don't put that in your bag. That's dirty. You have to wrap the candy to make it safe for people. And as much as I love the samplers, no, you just don't do that. That's cheap. And then they call it the Halloween tradition is called Halloween candy. There should be nothing savory or otherwise not sweet, or in the case of sweet tart, sour, or nerds or Skittles. There should be nothing savory in Halloween. You know, no popcorn, no Doritos, which I've heard of. I have not seen done, but I've heard of little bags of Doritos going out.
What?
No, no little bags of potato chips, also have not seen, but have heard, or pretzels, because people go to the clubs. I talked before about the full size candy bars. They won't do that. They'll go get the 36 count box of Utz potato chips for like $9.
Mhm.
And they'll hand out kids potato chips. Like somehow potato chips are more healthful than candy.
Mhm.
I don't understand this. So, no savory Halloween treats. That's not allowed. So, the worst thing that I ever got, I have to admit, not being a fan. of the little things of Sun-Maid raisins.
Hmm.
You know, I have to admit, not being a fan of getting whole pieces of fruit. I admit to not liking getting anything that was not wrapped,
Yeah.
which would include your whole pieces of fruit. But probably the worst thing I ever got in a Halloween bag was change.
Like money change.
Yes. Like, so like the person reached into like what looked like a little basket. Well, what looked like a little basket. It fucking was a little basket. And they pulled out some, random change and put some in each person's bag. And, like one person got like 42 cents, another person got 28 cents, another person got 71 cents.
So it's a
It was
grab. So it's a grab bag. Whatever came out of the bag is what you got. You might get like 5 pennies, and you're just hosed.
exactly.
Oh,
But there would be like 7 or 8 coins. And it's like, why? I don't want your coins. I mean, I guess somebody thought, oh, I've got my coin jar lying around. And this was, the 70s, the 70s, and it was before those Coinstar things, and people would have to roll them up and take them to the bank. And I guess some fool just figured, I'll give them out as Halloween gifts. If you're going to do that, then maybe spread them out a little bit more evenly. Put a bag into them, put them each in a little baggie, and give people 30 cents a piece, $1 a piece. That's a kindness. I mean, but don't be lazy and dirty about it. Reaching in there with your grubby old ass hand that's probably just been up your ass. Then, then, then put it in each kid's bag.
right.
Steve, the last thing I want to hit on before we close this up, because this is a damn mess. It's a good mess, but it's a damn mess. It's getting me a little angry, to be honest. You talked about inspecting the candy. There were all these things when we were kids. Razor blades in the apples,
Oh,
pills stuffed into bananas. Pills stuffed into bananas? Wouldn't you know? Homemade candy that really was made of X-Lax. Which actually didn't happen as a Halloween thing, but I know somebody who that happened to.
oh, we'll get into that next episode. Oh yeah.
Oh lordy. Did you ever, I mean, have you ever like come across like tainted Halloween treats of any kind other than just Halloween treats that just suck?
Well, because I don't have a full blown chemistry set to test every bit of candy to see if something is tainted or not, no, I cannot verify 100% that I've come across tainted candy. I, of course, have come across suspicious candy, and I've said, this shit gets thrown away, like the Whitman sampler that's unwrapped. That
Oh,
shit.
that got thrown away. Okay, I was gonna
So,
say, what is suspicious candy?
so usually it was, the unwrapped candy. Again, on your list of candies of not so good. I don't know if you ever had somebody give you caramel apples. Um, that was one that also. Now I appreciate the effort that that person made because you have to make caramel apples. Well, I guess you can buy them at the store, but usually people make them. But I'm sorry, you can wrap it up all you want, but I'm thinking this is a homemade product that got thrown away. So no, Bill, I cannot verify that I ever came across tainted candy, but I certainly have seen candy suspicious and it gets thrown the heck away. That's all I got there.
Were these caramel apples at least wrapped?
They were.
Okay. I can remember one time getting a candy apple, which is a much different thing because the candy apple was dipped in that red hard candy stuff and then
Yes.
left to harden, and that shit is rough on your teeth.
Yep.
And it wasn't wrapped.
Oh, bye bye.
And of course, it's sticky.
Yeah,
And
in your
so,
bag.
like other pieces of candy, like bubble gum and shit, were sticking to the damn candy apple.
God.
And so the whole damn complex of candy apple and bubble gum and all that, I used to like bazooka bubble gum, double bubble and hubba bubba and all that shit. I had to throw it away because it was all like stuck together. So that was stupid. So, no, I've never come across tainted candy. I've much more come across stupid candy,
Mhm.
people doing stuff like that. I mentioned about the change. But I mean, just like, what was another thing? Those, the candy buttons that come
Oh,
off the paper.
yeah.
That was stupid. Candy is ridiculous. Throw that shit out. Every once in a while, something would come across that was open, or it was looked like it was open,
Mhm.
and that shit got thrown out. I don't think there was anything wrong. And no, no, I know you don't have a chemistry set, but like,
Yeah.
if you got like one of your kids was like, I have this little piece of paper with a picture of Mickey Mouse on it. He's good. That would be bad.
Not that mouse.
You know, if there is a little rolled up stick wrapped in paper
Mhm.
in the bag, that would be bad.
Yes.
We don't want that. So no, that's about it.
Yeah.
That's about it. And last question I'm gonna ask. I know I said this last one was last. How prevalent was it where people weren't coming to the door, but they just had candy there, like in a bowl? And how did you guys handle that if you ever encountered it?
I never encountered that as a kid, or I don't remember encountering it as a kid. I don't know. But I know there have been several houses like that with my kids. And usually it's either somebody and they leave a note, hey, had to go out of town, but please help yourself. Happy Halloween. So they at least take the time to acknowledge Halloween and say, hey, I couldn't be here, but take something. Um, as a rule of thumb, at least as far as I was concerned, I would just tell my kids take two because that bucket, obviously, there was no opportunity to refill, there was no opportunity to restock. So that bucket was that bowl or whatever it was that bowl or bucket. So you want to make sure that as many kids as possible over a 2 hour period got some candy from this container. So I would just say, hey, take two. Don't get greedy. Other kids need to come through here as well. But yeah, you would see that. Usually it was either that or it was getting late in trick or treating, and maybe the person was tired of hanging outside, so they would just leave the bucket outside and just say, "Hey, help yourself. I'm done." But yeah, um, I if I had to put a percentage on it, certainly less than 10%, more like 5% of the houses you run into have just the bucket that says "help yourself." Yeah, but I've seen
Yeah,
them.
I've had similar, and I think that's a kind gesture, and that's a nice thing to do. But next episode, we're going to talk about people and things that are not so nice. So we talked about the treats this episode. Next episode, we're talking about the tricks. So you'll have to tune back in for that. And so that's a perfect place for us to sign off. So for Steve, my name is Bill. You have been watching or listening to another edition of But Before We Go, have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Bye now.